Susan?
Yeah.
Mr. Laurel, you care to do an invocation? And an invocation by Mr. Laurel and our prayer by Mr. Laurel.
Let's pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here, Father, gathered and discuss the county business. Father, we ask special prayers this day to please watch over and protect our military men and women that are serving this country, protecting the freedoms that we all enjoy. Please watch over our local law enforcement everywhere. Just be with them and guide them and help them throughout the day and throughout the country. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item, approval of the agenda. We have 8 items on the agenda. Are there any changes before we proceed? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Have no awards, no public comments. We do not have the minutes from the previous meeting. No old business at this time, so move straight on to new business. The first item is regarding the fuel limit insurance policy.
Be short,
Okay.
but this is concerning the city of Scottsboro, basically, and Garner Street. Mike Carter, my boyfriend, is a licensed guide on Lake Garner Street. And in the last 3 or 4 years, the creel limit has diminished drastically. And we just decided to take it upon ourselves, which no one would step out and do this, but I do the footwork, I coordinate all this, but it's the Lake Gunnersville Conservation Group. And we've had 2 meetings, and we're gonna have another August 28th at 3 p.m. at the COA building in Jackson County Park. And I had spoken with Tommy Haynes about this. We need to get one thing that was on our agenda was to get the creel limit from 10 down to 5 to try to see if that would help with the decrease in decline of the fishing. And Mr. Hodges has been to our meeting. He's learning a lot about fishing, I think, on what we've been discussing. So, but that's one thing that we see a lot of these out-of-towners, and we want the business. I know you want the tourists, you want the tournaments here, and we've seen so much of people taking away the creel to eat. And if somebody comes here from out of state, and I'm not downing out of staters, it's just they're going to go out 3 or 4 times a day and catch their creel limit and come back and bring it to their camp or whatever and go home with their allotted fish and more. And this is what this is about. I've got a rough draft of what y'all can read and look at, and I'm going to Marshall County Wednesday to address their county commission and the legislative delegation also. I talked with Mr. Ainsworth about 2 weeks ago. And it's something that that's one step. And there's a lot of work that has to be done on these tournaments that come here in learning. I know they are supposed to know how to run tournaments, but you see bags of fish sitting on the grass in this 100-degree weather. That's not good. And put 3 to 5 fish in a little bitty bag of water. They're going to have to start learning how to take better care of their tournaments in that aspect of it. And we have, you see dead fish. We were at Goose Pond yesterday, and after they had 3 tournaments that went out of Goose Pond. And, you know, a lot of people don't know how to deal with fish like that, and they put them in their live wells all day and leave them there. They're not going to live. They're not going to live, and that's, I guess, another educational thing that needs to be done. But this that I'm bringing to you today is to cut the creel limit from 10 to 5, and hopefully it's kind of a study in a year or 2, see if that works or see if we can see a decline. But the main thing, objective that we're going for is to restock, because the biologists that were at some of our meetings, they said that the creel limit was fine, you know, we could let it go to 5. But the spawning size fish, the 15 to 18 inch fish, are not there, not as many as need be. And that's detrimental to the spawn and having, the fish, the lake has fish, that's not the problem. It's just that size of fish that's on the decline, and they've been seeing that like for the last 3 or 4 years in the lake. And we're gonna try to go to the state in February and make a proposal before the State Conservation Board to try to get them to help fund the fish. And if they don't, we have individuals that have come up and said they would, help with stocking. And we're talking about 60 to 100,000 fish. And we had a gentleman that spoke at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago from a fishery out of Montgomery. And he said that a lake as big as Gunnersville, that his price would be like 50 cents per fingerling. And if they were like 2 to 3 inches, they had a better survival rate to do that or go that route. And that's why he was talking about 60 to 100,000 fish. So you're looking at $50,000. But as I say, if the state does not step up and at least, do part of it, we've got money backers that says they will help do this. So it's just something that needs to be done, because a lot of the clients that these guides have, they say they're not coming back because they're not catching the fish that they used to. They don't want to come down here and just catch a big fish, and that's not necessarily, they want to catch numbers. And most of them, put the fish back, which is a good thing. You catch them, take a picture, and release. That's the name of the game. But there are several things that we've got to work on, and at this next meeting, everybody that was in attendance, we had over 100 at the meeting, and they are going to bring like 3 to 5 things that we can take before the board possibly and see if we can, get some changes made other than just restocking. But it does need to be restocked in that size fish and for that 2 to 4 pound range. Because I know there's a lot of revenue that comes from this lake for Scottsboro and Gunnersville.
You have a copy of that?
I have a copy, and y'all can read it and then make your own. If y'all decide this is what you want to do, make one with the letterhead or whatever on it, and maybe you can get it back to me, and that way I can get it to Mr. Ainsworth and Mr. Haynes.
Thank you. Go over the process after everybody finishes quickly. The basic process of this, there is a big process, as was mentioned. There are a lot of pieces to this that need to be looked at. One is the restocking of the lake. There are other things that were talked about in those meetings about tournaments, and I think there are many meetings that will have to be had in the future to determine a lot of that. This is one thing that came up in the last meeting, and I believe Representative Haynes had looked into. And basically what is being requested here is a letter from the county commission to the State Conservation Board, correct? Requesting that they reduce the creel limit from 10 to 5 per day. So that's what we would need to do if we want to move forward and support that change. It would require a letter from the commission to do that. Now, of course, we're just saying today, if we're not prepared to do that, we can move it to the next meeting. But we did want to put it out here and see, have some discussion, see what our thoughts were on it. And Bob, Mr. Manning, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what she's saying, and I've been fishing here for many years, bass fishing, and I basically release everything I catch. But that creel, along with the tournament fishing, is putting a tremendous pressure. We have the major tournament, I guess the biggest tournament is Big Bass Splash, and they've moved it to where it's right during the spawning season now. And that's taken out a lot of those size fish that she's talking about. I know it brings a lot of revenue and a lot of money to the area, but it used to be in May. For some reason, they moved it to March, right during the spawning season. And I also have seen fish handled like she explained, not in a good manner. They'll be live when you weigh them in, but when you release them, a lot of them are dying.
A lot of stress.
A lot of stress. And it's 100-degree weather, you know how hot the live wells, even if you're putting, most people do put some, a chemical in it to try to revive the fish, and a lot of people put ice in there, but some of the ice even has things in it that hurts the fish. If you don't handle the ice properly and leave it bagged, and there's a certain way you have to do all that stuff. But there's definitely a huge decline on the number of fish most people I know are catching now. I mean, it's
Well,
like you could,
it's not, some people are lucky and they'll catch 8 pounds, 7 pound, 5, but that's not, people say, well, fishing is great. Some of these people that don't want to discuss this basically.
Mhm.
But it's got to be brought to light because
Yeah,
there's
it's-
a problem and it needs to be fixed now.
yeah, I've talked to some people that's been fishing for 30 years. Great fishermen, local fishermen, and I've talked to them even recently, and they're saying the same thing. They're not catching nowhere near the amount of fish they used to catch.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
Does this creel limit, does it only apply to certain types of fish? Is it?
Just bass.
Just bass.
Bass only at this time, yes.
Like crappie is it's a big crappie lake here too, and there's plentiful supply of crappie.
They are very
And
plentiful.
they only live about 3 years anyway. They're gonna die after about 3 years. But bass are not that way. Bass live a lot longer than that, or most of them do if they in the right environment. So I see what she's talking about firsthand.
And another thing, it's not just necessarily the tournament fishermen, these people that come that want their bucket list is to fish on Gunnersville Lake. And people I wouldn't know how, and some of you gentlemen may know, to fizz a fish. And if you catch a fish in deep water and bring it to the surface and you put it in a live well, it's gonna flip up on its side, and if you don't know how to get that air out of its lungs, it'll die if you don't know how to do that. And that's a lot of educational things that I wouldn't know how to do it. I know how to do it, but I couldn't do it. I'll put it that way.
Mr. Campbell, do you?
Yeah, I'll offer a comment. I was on the phone with a citizen, and he had moved here just for fishing. He was from Mississippi, and he was calling about a road problem, but in our conversation that got brought up, and I asked him, what's being an outsider growing up here? I guess we get kind of numb to it, but I said, what would be the largest attraction and what seems to be the biggest draw? And I guess this has been in a lot of discussions with the lake falling out of Bassmaster's top 10, but he made mention of, he said, look, if it's the lake is really what matters. He said, if you have nice hotels and good places to eat, that's all great. He said, but a hardcore fisherman that's traveling from out of town, they want to catch fish, they want to catch a lot of fish, so if the fishing's not there, if the lake's not there, none of the other stuff really matters. And he made mention of a couple of things that I'd like Ms. Thomas to know. He mentioned about maybe closing some of the creeks,
Yes, that
just
was mentioned.
an off-limit time during some of that. And what brought that up was the Mud Creek, the construction we have going on at Mud Creek. He asked if it was going to be closed during that spawning period. And then he said, I go all over fishing these tournaments, and everywhere I go, there's a launch fee to launch your boat. And he
That's
said,
also mentioned too.
maybe something like that for folks place money for launch fee, and then that money be used on the lake. So just thought I'd offer that as a couple of things I'd heard out there from talking with folks.
And it was also mentioned, the same things that you said. Another thing was, everybody that comes to fish have to pay a $20 fee, and it be like year-round, some out-of-towners or even locals, a $20 fee to launch your boat at any round. It's good at any round and good for a year. That was mentioned, someone brought that up.
Also lowering the tournament limit sometime. Most of them have a best 5 fish,
Not on with 3, but some on with 5.
Yeah, some of them go to 3, but, you know, most of them used to have 5. And,
Yes.
you know, and a lot of people feel like if you lower that down to 3, you still have the same competitiveness in the event, but yet you're just carrying 60% of the fish around instead of just a thought.
Any questions or comments about this time? Most of the comments I've heard about it have been positive. I'm learning a whole lot about all this stuff. But, do we want to move forward with this now? Do we want to put this on next week? How do we want to go?
I say we move forward with it, if everybody's in agreement.
I'd like to see it next week, because this is all new to me. I don't know anything about this stuff.
That's fine.
Do we want to continue our meeting and do it next week, or do we want to have a work session?
That's up to y'all. I mean, if y'all have something to add to this, like I said, this is new to me.
It was a pretty strong consensus, I know, from the group that was there. And I didn't know, just from that group, obviously, you want to hear from other folks, but from the few things I've heard this afternoon today, seems like there's a pretty positive response towards it. But it wouldn't hurt to have that out there for a week and then look at it, continuing it to vote next week. Or maybe next week. No, we can continue it if we need to do this. I think this is fairly is it time sensitive? What kind of time frame are you
No,
looking
it's
for?
fine, that'll be
Okay.
fine. That'll be fine.
So you're gonna meet with Marshall County next week?
Wednesday morning,
This week.
this week.
When do
So
you
we're
plan
gonna
to make
make
your
a work
presentation to
Yeah.
when do you plan to make your presentation to the state?
In February.
February?
Oh, what about this? Do you plan on getting this before then?
I will have to find out. I think that can be presented in February also, but we've got a lot of signatures to get from the legislative office and the one in Marshall County
Okay.
and Chamber, and of course, the Chamber of Commerce. I went by and got a draft of Mr. Parsons, what they're gonna look at signing also.
So in that case, we'll put this on the work session for next week for any further discussion, if we have any questions or anything, and then we can move forward. Oh, I'm sorry, for the week after, yeah, we're going next week. That's why you asked that, right?
That's right.
For the week after, and we actually have a work session and meeting to follow, so we'll have that on those as long as there's no objection at that point. Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you so much for listening.
All right, move on to the next item, and the hiring review board recommendation for the vacant parks temporary position. You have a recommendation letter in your packets. Any discussion? Do we have a motion to approve this recommendation letter?
Make a motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What's the time, how long will this temporary be for?
6 months.
Yeah, since we've got a lot to do between now and February, I think this is running February. But I'd like to run it for at least 6 months, if possible.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. And opposed say no. Okay, next item, motion to approve the IDB appropriation. This is for $30,000 to continue on appropriation that was given last year for a project in Stevenson. So do we have a motion to appropriate the remaining dollars and all the necessary, what's the word, qualifications were met for these dollars?
Qualifications were met.
Yes.
They are operating and employing folks.
Correct. We have a motion to approve the remaining $30,000.
You've already obligated, I make the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item, motion to sign the Alabama CARES contract for the Council on Aging. That is this contract, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is the annual agreement that has to be done for the Alabama CARES program. And would you like to tell anything about it, or?
It's a program to help caregivers it's a respite type program, and it's fully funded by this contract. We don't have to pull any local dollars into it. And we've got, I think about 30 clients at this time that are on that program.
It funds that program entirely.
It does.
And again, this is an annual contract agreement that has to be done. Got any questions or comments on that? Anybody need to see? All right. Do we have a motion to approve the agreement?
So moved.
Motion, have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Next item, motion to approve the transportation grant application for COA.
The first page is the letter as it will be sent with the application. Second page shows the source of funding, and because the local funding comes from other than just the county commission, it comes from contracts and ad sales, and then we have some other contributions that go into the local funding.
Questions or comments on this? Basically, the annual budget that has to be sent every year, correct?
Right.
And the local share, does it say in here where some of the local share comes from? Is it fair to say where some of the local share comes from?
Yes, it does in the boxes on the second page. That is
Okay,
some of the
gotcha.
local shares. There's a couple of, well, it's added in, it's not added in as donations, but we do have another source through the city there. We're asking for the help with the bus, and plus they do some other funding as well.
Questions or comments on this?
Has the city agreed to their part?
They've got that tonight, correct?
Yes.
It is not listed on here.
On the bottom.
Oh, okay, I see.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the application?
Make that motion.
Motion, and a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, say no. Next item is the Mack Truck Program for Public Works. Mr. Campbell?
Yes, sir. The purpose of this discussion, it's Mack truck time again, and time to let them know our intent as far as building the trucks. But one thing I wanted to bring forward was recent discussion with Russ Wood, with the Wood Auction Company. And he advised to strongly consider going with the automatic transmissions if we have the money in our budget. And made a statement that we'll more than pay for it at auction time. So the figures I have on the first page are automatics versus manual. So as you probably recall, every time that we order new trucks and sell our old, there is usually an annual increase for the new trucks over the old trucks. So those figures depict that difference. If we stay with the manual transmission, the total for the 3 dumps there is what's to be expected. And then if we switch to an automatic transmission, the extra 20,000 would be expected for each of those. He's recommended this time not to go to auction with our tractor. He said the market's a little shaky right now on the tractor, and advised us to hold on to it as far as ordering purposes and see how things go later time.
We have manual now.
Yes, sir.
We had an automatic a couple of years ago. How did that work?
I'd have to look back.
You remember, Jason?
Remember
I
the
know we
year?
bought one.
Was it the year that we brought in more than our replacement cost? It was one, 2 years ago, we actually.
Bank money.
We actually banked money on
They should be better on their employees.
Yeah, his description was, that's how it got up in discussion was, finding folks that can drive sticks in those trucks is a challenge. And he said, well, if you're having trouble with it, you can imagine a huge asphalt contractor in the northeast or northwest that's coming to these auctions buying the truck, what kind of challenges they're facing in finding drivers that can drive them. So, if you know the year time frame, I can kind of give a rundown on.
I don't remember. I just know we bought one automatic to try it. And I think it was received very good, but
Yeah.
I don't
It
remember.
looks like the strongest year we had was in 13 and 14.
Next page.
We paid about $490, and looked like they auctioned for $532. If it was in that year, that was the best. Looks like the best year that they've done. Last year they netted somewhere around 14,000.
The return is the same either way.
It's all based on what he predicts and what the market's doing.
Don't we have a guaranteed return usually?
Yeah, on the last page, the back page in the correspondence, what we're guaranteed on these, he's saying is 135, or 132 rather. He thinks they should bring 135 and hopeful on the 140 range.
So,
But on the automatics, we pay now and it'll just be made up when it's time to flip them again.
That's right.
that's what I'm saying. Will we get more for the automatics? That's what we
Yes.
anticipate.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
what percentage of trucks during the auction do they have that come in as automatic versus manual? Do you know?
I don't. If we want to discuss some of this, or if you'd like me to get some more information to you before we decide which way to go, I'll be happy to chase any of that down and see.
You definitely don't want to take 3 automatics down there when 80% of the auction
Yes, sir.
is, you don't take 3 manuals when 80% automatic will kill your price.
Do we, we'll have a meeting work session in 2 weeks. Would that be plenty of time then if we make a decision then, or do we need a decision today?
Whatever you guys are comfortable with. They're pressing me somewhat to know what to start building.
Okay. Do we know now, or do we want to push it to the
The
work?
only thing is we're going to automatic.
I'm good with automatic.
These will auction in the spring, but basically what we're doing is getting permission from you guys to move forward so that we can have those delivered in February, be set up for a March auction with the existing
We don't want to be in a situation where we're
truckless.
truckless.
Yes, sir.
So do we need to go ahead and approve moving forward, and with next year's process, we'll move toward automatics? Okay, do we have a motion to do that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, we have a second.
Second motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Next item, motion to adopt hiring review board recommendation for vacant public works department after tier 1 and 2 positions. We have 2 different recommendations. We can accept these separately or together.
Make a motion to accept them together.
Okay, so we'll accept agency 1 and 2 positions. We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I think we have, this will make a vacant position in another one, or just fill that?
We have 2 HMT1 vacancies that exist now.
Okay.
So our plan is to re-advertise starting today. That'll last for 10 days, and then we'll do an interview process and likely select 2 candidates out of that interview process to fill the remaining 2 vacancies.
Any other questions or comments? Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay. Final item, motion to adopt the hiring review board recommendation for the vacant sanitation department temporary position. You have that in your packets as well. Name for that, so any discussion on that? Motion to accept that recommendation.
Make the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. And I think we're still advertising for a driver position.
Yes, it ends today at 4:30, and then we'll start our review process probably within the next week or so.
Okay, that concludes the items on our agenda, so we'll move on to our reports. Over here, Ms. Rowe.
No, sir.
Mr. Benning.
Nothing coming.
Mr. Campbell.
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. Ball.
Yeah, Mr. Hodges, I gave each one of you all a proposal on a shop building. I think I asked to get it last week for the park project. And it's a 60 by 30 building, 14 foot high, with roll-up door, concrete floor. And also has a 18 by 60 by 12 foot lean-to. And that's all with that don't have a concrete floor to it, it's just gravel. But the whole shop area has a concrete floor. And then it's sectioned off in sections for different things that have to be stored in there.
So this for review, we'll see if this needs to be included in the project or need to be bid separately, or if we can just move forward with it. I think it's under the bid law, so as long as it's outside, we'll determine that. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. All right. Is it Porter?
Still Porter right now.
All right. A couple things. We will not have a meeting next week. We've got the ACCA conference, and I think forum will be after that, so we will be out for that. And we will have a work session and meeting together on the 22nd to make up for that. The work session first and the meeting to follow. Also, we'll be posting this online, but I did want to reiterate the board appointments. All of these board appointments or positions, vacancies will remain open until they have been appointed. So we'll entertain folks to apply for these positions until they are filled. For the Jackson County Personnel Board, we have 3 positions. DHR, we have 1. Jackson County Water Authority, we have 1. The 911 Board, we have 2 positions. Jackson County Healthcare Authority, we have 2 positions. Marshall Jackson Mental Retardation Authorities, we have 1 position. And Alabama Mountain Lakes Tourism Board, we have 1 position. So several boards needing folks to apply for that. We'll post it online and anywhere else we can, and if you know somebody that's interested, please get them to put their name in and to serve on all these.
We had much interest in many letters.
In a couple of them, but.
Could I see the
Yes.
current list?
There's another one. Mr. Bentley, do you have anything? Did I already do that? No? I didn't do that. Mr. Bentley? Mr. Miller, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Guthrie? Mr. Lennon?
No, sir.
Okay, that concludes the items on our agenda, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.